Meticulously spacebound Rubicon. Set in 2056, the plot revolves around the events following a catastrophe on Earth which results in the whole planet being surrounded by the presence of poisonous gas. Amidst such circumstances, a crew in space is left with the choice of whether to save themselves or risk their lives trying to search for the survivors back on Earth. The main cast includes Julia Franz-Richter as Hannah Wagner, George Blagden as Gavin Abbott, and Mark Ivanier as Dimitri Krillo. The concept of a scientific space fiction with humanity on brink of its extinction is in itself an interesting mix that has been explored previously in the past. Rubicon, 2022, is an example of one such interpretation that still delivers the goods while traversing through the paradigms of human mortality and a dystopian future. The film aspires to be a stylistic slow burner as it seeks to build slowly up to its way to its climax. It tries to keep itself sophisticatedly slow-paced but instead results in being tedious despite having the running time well within 2 hours. The correct word to describe its pacing is that it is a double-edged sword. There are glimpses where the pacing backs up its compelling premise to create an immersive vibe fitting well to the space adventure, but it doesn't remain consistently engaging in its approach as it succumbs to its storytelling which it seeks to master. The project marks the debut of Magdalena Lorich as a feature film director, after establishing her name with 3 short movies. Julia Franz-Richter as Hannah Wagner does well in creating a contrasting profile as a soldier, within the spaceship's crew, confident in her own thoughts, coupled with the dilemma of human morality. Her character progression is a little unstable in execution from the first act to the second act, however, that doesn't take away from what has been an overall solid performance. Mark Ivanier as Dimitri Krillo shines as a Russian scientist, playing a stubborn doctor. He manages to bring out layers of depth to his self-contradicting character, both wise and selfish. George Blagden as Gavin Abbott is also decent in his role. The chemistry among the 3 members worked well, despite their different personalities, as they formed an unlikely alliance. For a film that likes to take things slow, the character relationship between Gavin and Hannah did undergo sudden changes that felt unnatural. Although it improved as the film passed, it didn't go unnoticed that there wasn't much development between the two. The film is also guilty of overcomplicating itself in some instances. It tries to back up its complex theme but, in the end, leaves one wondering that it could have been simplified in some parts. However, it does a really good job to create the right kind of atmosphere, serving the plot well backed by good direction and cinematography. The film shines the brightest when it questions the nature of human decisions and their subsequent consequences. It is the human element that makes the boat afloat despite not being spectacular. In conclusion, it is not for everybody, but it's definitely not a bad film. The ending could have been better, nevertheless, it's a decent execution of a promising premise that could have been better. A spectrum of identity crisis Last the Night. Set during the pandemic, Last the Night, also known as Pacerville, is directed by Nick Leisure from a script written by himself and Tom Chilcote and starring Brian Austin Green in the lead role. It is not an over-exaggeration to categorize this movie as one of the worst movies in recent memory. The story takes well within the context of the pandemic and revolves around John Dunbar, Brian Austin Green, a history teacher, who plots revenge after getting made fun of by his students. The film tries to be many things but excels at nothing. For the most part, it felt like things were randomly pieced together to form a bigger picture without much sense. The characters themselves felt like a mismatch with the other characters and didn't blend well with the narrative of the plot. Every conversation in the movie didn't feel like it had any purpose, and was just there for the sake of it. The 4 students, Sadie, McKenna Taylor, Trevor, Akari White, Miguel, David Valdez, and Genesis, Julia Kwong, were poor throughout. Neither at any point did there feel any chemistry among the 4, nor were they written well, with their only personality trait being that of consistently annoying. The character of Miguel in particular was very cliché in the sense it gave an impression of a high school bully from a teenage soap drama. Brian Austin Green in the lead was average at best but far from the worst part of the movie. he didn't do much with his character and lacked convolution in his portrayal. For the first act, there is absolutely nothing striking about his character as a lead. It was not until the second act that he showed glimpses of what was required of his character. But that doesn't compensate for his erratic and irregular performance. The movie takes the audience for granted as it presents itself with dumb reasoning and explanations of different conjectures. Also, the fact that the conversations regarding the pandemic were mentioned needlessly all over the place. It tries to explain some character motivations as a natural reaction to the repercussions of the pandemic, but it fails to justify their relevance as they feel very unnecessary in general. Another issue is that the build-up around the climax is put up in the least interesting way possible. It is very disengaging and doesn't feel worth it to wait around for the main event. It suffers from an identity crisis all over the place. The characters themselves remain confused about their intentions. For a thriller, it lacks the suspense, build-up, and gore violence to stamp its authority, as it remains shallow in its approach. Since the other elements don't bode in well together, the shortcomings of less environmental knowledge also remain highlighted. Overall, nothing is exciting about this movie that is even vividly rememberable. It tries to be serious but doesn't take itself too seriously. Moreover, the recent school shootings will make this movie a controversial hot topic. Nevertheless, it is better to skip this one. An unsuccessful attempt of portraying human emotions beauty. The film begins with a beautiful quote, "When I sing, trouble can sit right on my shoulder and I don't even notice." This line is said by Sarah Vaughan and it tries to tell us something about the main character of the film. A girl is signaling and saying to her dear ones that this is her last chance of being normal. At one point, it felt as if she was suffering from an incurable disease. But there was no such thing, and I couldn't justify this statement throughout this film. She wants her future to be about freedom, and why won't she do that? Everyone wants different things from her. Her dad sees her as some sort of bank. For him, beauty, his daughter, is like an investment that should give good returns from time to time. Even on his deathbed, he just talks about money and receiving his cut from her. People talk emotional stuff at times like these, and this old man just wanted some cash. This is a dysfunctional family in which the head is unfaithful, arrogant, and money-minded. The wife is insecure about sending her child into a whole new world. They both are fighting over their daughter in most of the scenes in the movie. At last, it felt as if more of Beauty's life could have been shown instead of that drama about her signing the contract, her father's money lust, and her being a lesbian. From whom were her parents protecting her? Half of the film was wasted discussing the topic of her signing the contract. Her mother repeatedly said that she was not ready when she was the one who had been training her daily for 6 hours. In my opinion, Beauty has tried to capture the emotions of the main characters and it didn't succeed in all its attempts. There were many failed ones as well. The writers were trying to convey the same thing repeatedly throughout the film. Yes, we get it that she wasn't loved for being a daughter by her father but for being an investment. Even her brothers can be seen fighting on the road just for her protection, and that too from her own girlfriend Jas. Was there an alien threat or was there a shooter who had threatened her? No, then why was everyone trying to save her? The film lacked concepts and core at several levels. It clearly showed what the life of Beauty is, which was the opposite of her name in reality. If the screen time was more devoted to the main character than those unnecessary fights, then it might have become a worthy film to watch. Things seemed to be exaggerated, and the plot lacked sense. You can give it a try, but it would be fruitful to invest that time in some other worthy films in the same genre. The alien invasion concept fails in execution. Blasted begins with some scientific lines, and I thought that this is going to be a sci-fi thriller. Things like Hestalen being a completely normal Norwegian mountain valley and then not being normal when inexplicable lights were seen in the sky. Scientists from all over the world have sought out this valley, but the lights are still a mystery. These things build up a good mystery in the minds of the audience. This sci-fi comedy is inspired by the real-life UFO phenomenon in Hessdalen, Norway. Stein Lyongo operates at the Hessdalen Observatory. She was near the caves shooting for a blog with a female until they find a secret passage, which was later revealed to be a spaceship. That's when her life and those of the people living in the town change. It's as if the whole town has turned into monsters. No one is normal. Those with green shiny eyes don't even need to communicate with each other. They telepath to send their messages. The pregnant female officer is also a good addition to the cast of the film. She was 9 months pregnant, and her water broke right at that moment when human-turned-aliens were knocking at her door. We see a boys' group celebrating Seb's bachelor party. Seb himself wasn't out there to do the same. He just went there to impress an investor and get the job done. The lesson learned from this film is that never mix your personal and professional life. If you do so, you miss out on them both. And, just maybe, it might land you in similar trouble as shown in the movie. In the starting, the expectations were set high with all those green lights and blasts. It is sad to say that the same could not be maintained throughout the film. Even the alien commander wasn't worth a watch as he was just a green horrible slimy creature. It's like a boys' group planning a bachelor's party for their friend in a valley which is rumored to be the home of alien sightings. They discover that all this was not just a rumor but real. In my opinion, the concept of the film was good, but it could have been executed in a better manner. The idea of making a film with an alien invasion plot and all those laser lights is fabulous. In the end, it turned out that the film was just fit to be viewed by children. If some more elements had been included, it could have been made fit for the adults as well. The actors have performed well. You can watch this film with your kids and family. There is not much of a drama or ulterior motive present in the film, making it a good watch for the children.